Recruitment, Queen Street Medical.
Staffing. However, September proved to be a better month than previous years due to increased visitors to our parks and also extending our tubing operations in the gorge to the end of September. The areas that are seriously impacted by revenue are the conservation areas, the forestry tree planting program, our outdoor education, and also donations. We are projecting a year-end break-even result for the conservation area program. Currently, we're reviewing the proposed 2021 budget, and looks like the township levy will remain at 2.5% for 2021, which will be $308,584 versus the current $301,160. That's it.
Thanks very much, Councillor McRae. I know from my visits to the Elora Gorge that it was very, very busy this past summer, so I'm glad to see that that had a positive impact on the revenues. Councillor Dunsmore, Economic Development, Groves Hospital Board, or CSAC, anything that you want to update on us on those committees, Councillor Dunsmore?
Yeah, the hospital board met, had a good meeting. First one kind of on Teams with everybody back after the summer. Very pleased with the way things are going with the new hospital and happy to have it open. And the struggles of COVID continue to weigh on them, but I think the staff there are handling it very, very well. The CSAC committee met for the first time via Zoom, and they were very happy to be getting back to the work of the committee. They expressed their gratitude for the staff and how they managed to navigate the minefield again of COVID and getting our facilities open in a safe manner. And there's also item 11.2 that they brought forward to our council today. And economic development, we put out a survey to survey all the businesses, to kind of a pulse check to see where they're at, see what else they might need from all the other things that we did early on. And we're just in the process of correlating that information, getting it all back for them. And then we'll see what we can do with that.
Thanks, Councillor Dunsmore. Moving on to Councillor Kittredge. Anything going on with safe communities or farm safety?
There's nothing to report.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kittredge. Councillor McElwain, anything with health recruitment, the Elora BAA or the Groves Board?
The Elora BIA are having their AGM on Monday in preparation for budget meetings. We had our fall meeting of the recruitment board, and things are moving forward. We still have people without family doctors in Center Wellington, and they're working on that, but it's not something that's easily solved. But things are going forward quite well, and we're getting new doctors in. That's about it.
Thanks, Councillor McElwain. Councillor Van Leeuwen, anything on either heritage or economic development you wanted to add to Councillor Dunsmore?
Dr. Dunsmore was on the committee with us. Yeah, thanks. No, I won't add anything to economic development because they continue to work mostly with the strategic plan for helping open up other business and what sectors we might have missed while through the helping business and pandemic kind of discussions. In regards to Heritage Committee, they continue to meet and review the documents. It's a good committee, and they're working in the background together as well via Zoom and digitally to just keep projects moving forward. So when we do come out of it, that we're still kind of on track with our strategic plan of marketing heritage and all different aspects to it. So they're still at work, and council does see a lot of their work come to the table as well through permits. So thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Van Leeuwen. Councillor Foster, anything from Vic Park Seniors Committee or CW Hydro?
Thank you, Mayor. CW Hydro, we're actually meeting on Thursday coming up this week. A little shout out to Keith Roselle, who's going to be retiring from the Hydro Board after many long years of service on the old Fergus Public Utilities Commission right through Center Wellington Hydro. Thank you, Keith, for years and years of community service. Center Wellington Seniors, we met approximately 3 weeks ago for the first time since the pandemic began, and we're looking to open the Seniors Center on a very limited socially distanced basis for only some activities. Very limited numbers and full social distancing protocols in place, so seniors can do a few things in the main hall. Happy to take any questions, but that's pretty much it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Foster. I know a lot of the seniors are pretty happy to be back at it. They know it's going to be a little bit different, but I know they're happy to get back some of the programs and some of the interaction. That's been really hard for them for sure. So thanks for that update. Moving on to confirmation of the agenda for today. The Council of the Township of Center Wellington confirmed the agenda for its meeting held October 26, 2020. Mover for that motion, please. Councillor Dunsmore, second by Councillor McElwain. All in favor? And that is carried. We've two reports. Oh yeah, no, sorry. Confirmation of the minutes. For our council meeting on September the 28th, I have a recommendation of the minutes of the council meeting held September the 28th, 2020 be adopted as circulated. Mover for that. Councillor Dunsmore, second by Councillor Kittredge. All in favor? And that's carried.
I have a question for that.
Oh, you do? Okay, Councillor Kittredge.
Yes. On the minutes for 3.1, they're not complete for what the information given from the questions on that. There were some answers given to some questions that I think are relevant for the public. She didn't state, it's not stated in the minutes why the Constitution was not applicable to mask wearing, and she answered that. And it also, it's not in the minutes why masks were needed for religious services, and she answered that. And it did not give the exact answer when I had to ask twice for when the mask order would be lifted. And I think that's significant. That's not in the minutes. And it didn't mention about information that was, she said was on the government website, all the information. And to have to look, and you have to just look for it. Didn't state that. And they didn't, and finally didn't state that she said only vaccination and not herd immunity would be the solution. So all those things were not stated, which are significant statements from the questions that were answered. So I think that needs to be in the minutes to be complete. I think that just, if the minutes are to be of value for reference, they would need to be included. So that was incomplete. And I'd like to have a revision for that.
Yeah, minutes aren't supposed to be exhaustive. It's supposed to be a summary. The wording is for how minutes are done is without note or comment, and there's simply supposed to be a summary. Her whole presentation is online, so anybody who wants the complete presentation can go to the council meeting minutes and, sorry, the council agenda and see her whole presentation. So that's not, the purpose of minutes is not to replicate the whole discussion. So I think what's in the summary is what should be in the summary. Okay, we've passed this, the minutes already. So report from the committee of the whole, October 5th and October 19th. October 5th was a report from the budget report from the committee of the whole. And October the 19th was our report from the committee of the whole last week. Councillor Kittrus, you have a point of order? Your mic's not on, Councillor Kittrus. So do you have a point of order? That's the only reason for interruption.
I have yes, I have a point of order that they're incomplete for the October 5th. There's missing information on October 5th of a vote. There was a motion by Councillor Bob Foster, and I seconded it, and that's not in that minute. That's not in those minutes. So that's incomplete.
So if the motion is defeated, it's not included because it's not related to the action that came out of it. So again, it's not a step-by-step process of everything that went on in minutes. It's just decisions that were made and a summary of what was talked about. Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Mayor Linton. I'd like to separate the two reports so that I have some comments about the October 19th one, please.
Okay, we can do that for sure. So we'll separate those two things out. I'm also going to suggest that we separate out item 5 from the committee of the whole report, which has to do with the procedure bylaw deferral. And I would like to have a little bit more discussion on that one, if that's okay with members of council, since it was an item that we discussed significantly. I wouldn't mind pulling that out and looking at it separate. Is that okay with council? Anyone opposed to that? Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarity's sake, I'm not sure I heard you correctly. You want to pull that item and have a discussion about it today in detail? Did I hear you correctly?
No, I didn't say have a discussion about it in detail. I did say pull out section 5 to vote on it separately.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's deal with these two reports separately. So I'm going to ask for the recommendation first on October 5th. I'm going to get a mover and a seconder, and then I'll make sure I provide opportunities for questions or discussion on the first item. I have a recommendation of the Council of the Township of Center Wine to approve report from Committee of the Whole dated October 5th as circulated. Mover for that, Councillor Dunsmore, seconded by Councillor Van Leeuwen. Any discussions about the Committee of the Whole, the budget discussion first? We'll go around the room quick. Councillor Foster, anything on the Committee of the Whole from the budget October 5th? Okay, Councillor Van Leeuwen? Councillor McElwain?
Nothing.
I have a feeling either he's really good at staying still for a long period of time or else his computer is frozen. Councillor Kittrus, can you just let me know that you hear us here?
I'm hearing you now.
Oh, are you? Okay. You're good.
Okay.
Do you have any comments on?
I missed that. Was there anything said there?
Yeah, nothing was said from the councillors. We're just going around the room and providing opportunity to have a question or comment on the Committee of the Whole budget from October the 5th.
Well, I would voted against it. That's all. So.
Okay, and no additional comments. Councillor Dunsmore? Okay, Councillor McRae?
Nothing.
Okay, I'll call the question on this. All in favor? And opposed? And that carries. So moving on to the second recommendation. So The Council of the Township of Center Wellington approve the report from Committee of the Whole dated October 19th, 2020, with the exception of item 5 as circulated. I have a mover for that. Councillor Dunsmore, seconded by Councillor McRae. All in favor of, oh, any discussion on those items? Sorry about that. Any discussions on everything with the exception of 5? Councillor, go around the room quick. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. I was really, I have a question about the emergency response plan. I see that the HIRA, the Hazard Identification and Risk Assessment Emergency Response Plan, that document isn't attached either to our report, and I'm wondering if we can get a copy of that document. Can it be circulated via
Yes.
email? It really should have been in there since it's part of the discussion.
Yeah, that can be circulated. Was that in the Committee of the Whole package?
Yes.
It
It
was?
should be. The item is, but the actual document as discussed by the committee is not in the package.
Yeah, we'll make sure that that's included, what is sent out to all members of council.
When might we expect to receive it, Mayor? Next couple of days or?
Later this week, within the
Perfect.
week.
Thank you.
Any other questions on these items minus item 5? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. So I'm going to get a mover and a seconder for the next piece, and then we'll have be able to have a little bit of discussion on it. So I have a recommendation to council of the Township of Center Wellington approve report from committee approve. Sorry, I'm going to start over. Recommendation of the Council of the Township of Center Wellington approve item 5 from the report from Committee of the Whole dated October 19th, 2020 as circulated. Mover for that recommendation. Councillor Dunsmore, second by Councillor McElwain. And then we'll have a little bit of discussion. So item 5 on the report says the Council of the Township of Center Wellington defer the consideration of a bylaw to govern the proceedings of council and committee meetings as presented by the Manager of Legislative Services and Municipal Clerk to allow council more time to review the draft as presented. So this was a motion that was moved by Councillor McElwain. I'd like us to provide a little, if we could, I'd like us to consider making this a little more specific. I'd like us to consider putting a date to that. I'd like it to be in December, at the next December council meeting. And based on the suggestion of Councillor McElwain to establish an ad hoc committee, I'd like to propose and make a change to that to put together an ad hoc committee. I've had 2 councillors reach out to me and volunteer to be on this committee, Councillor McElwain and Councillor Dunsmore. I'd like to suggest that with the addition of myself, that the 3 of us make up the ad hoc committee that works with staff to review all this and reports back on our meeting in December the 14th, I believe, council. I'd also like to suggest that members of council have the opportunity to send their comments in by next Friday. So that gives us time to look at all the comments as a committee and report back to council on December the 14th, and gives all members of council the opportunity for some input. I'd like to make a motion that's along those lines, but before I do that, can I have some discussion around the room on council about that idea, if that's something that we'd be interested in moving ahead on before I put that out as a motion? Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm generally in favor of what you said. I'd like to suggest that, given that it's December the 14th, perhaps we could have just a little bit more time. I believe this Friday is October 30th. Can I suggest November 6th for the comments to be submitted, or perhaps November 13th, whatever the first or second Fridays are in November? Number
Yeah,
one.
I was suggesting November 6th, not this Friday, but the
Oh,
following
okay,
Friday.
so November
And the only
6th,
reason
okay.
I thought that is because we still have to have time to meet and work with staff to provide something to council by the end of this year.
Yes, thank you,
That-
Mayor.
is that
I was
okay?
thinking of this Friday, October 30th, which is only, just the rest of this week. My second point, Mayor, is could this committee or could this decision that we're discussing include, I believe when the motion was made, we were looking to have members of the public have input into this important matter. Is there a way we could include or have a proviso for members of the public to participate and have input?
I think my suggestion would be that when it's coming to council, there's going to be an opportunity for delegations. So the public will be able to come to and present their delegations and send written delegations in as well. So that gives them a good few weeks to get some comments in so that we can make sure that that's part of the process and still meet our timelines.
Right. Okay.
Councillor Van Leeuwen?
Yeah, I have no concerns with this. One of my questions is more, are we just, because this is the recommendations from committee of the whole, are we making an amendment to the recommendation or are we making a motion to add to it? Just more of a procedural, how are we doing this?
Well, I'd be open to either myself or somebody else making a motion to modify section 5, the recommendation in section 5 to include the date and include the membership of the ad hoc committee, and then have council vote on the amended recommendation 5.
Okay, I'm happy with that. Might as well hear from everyone before we get a motion though.
Yeah, for sure. Councillor McElwain?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy you brought forward this because it's really what I wanted to do last week in my motion, but I didn't want to push too hard because it's difficult to get motions through as it is. The only thing when I was talking about an ad hoc committee, I was kind of anticipating having a member of staff in the ad hoc committee as well. Just because there are questions that might come up during the discussions that require somebody from the clerk's office to comment, add information that we don't have, that type of thing. Just a thought on my side. But I'm really happy that we're working toward having a committee and look forward to having the meeting.
Yeah, that's a good point, Councillor McElwain. They wouldn't be members of the ad hoc committee, but the intention was to have our clerk involved and our CEO involved in that discussion, those discussions as well. Councillor Kittrus?
Thank you, Mayor. I like the amendment that you're making. I do feel that the ad hoc committee should have public input. I feel that delegations, when they're limited to 5 minutes with such an extensive document, is not sufficient. And so that would be pushing it, at that meeting. And so I think that if the ad hoc committee could be committed to having some public input and advertising that so that they can have comments, particularly on areas that affect citizens. There might be some feedback that's very valuable on a broad scale for that. And so I would support this if there was a process for that, because I don't think the delegations on the December 14th will be will allow enough time for citizens at that time. They're going to be Christmas shopping and stuff like that, where if you get them in before and maybe have a day, half day, where maybe you could talk to them and make presentations, that might be very useful. That's all I would have to add to consider.
Yeah, and I appreciate your points that you're making. The challenge that I have with allowing for external input at the ad hoc committee level is that not all members of council get to hear it. And that's the reason why I think our traditional delegation process is a better format, because we have elected representatives on the ad hoc committee, but it also gives people in the public an opportunity to come and say their piece, and for all members of council to hear before they make any kind of decision. You know, we do make changes at council meetings based on what we hear, and I think that process that we already have established is a better process because it allows all the council to hear what's said by members of the public, and they have lots of time. Members of the public have lots of time to read the draft document already and get their comments in anytime between now and December 14th. So I don't think that time is an issue. They can also send in written comments as well, and that's not limited to 5 minutes to read them. So there would be lots of opportunity for input that way. I just think if we want to get this done in a timely fashion, we can't open something like a procedures bylaw up to the public, because that is largely how we do our meetings, and that should be primarily a council decision and council discussion. Councillor Dunsworth?
I'm glad you decided to do this and put this forward. I'm happy with it. I had several conversations after the last council meeting with members of the public, and I encourage them all to put it in writing, because it is a complex bylaw and we need to hear their concerns. And I'll commit to this council that when I receive that as part of this committee, I will forward that well in advance, probably as soon as I get it, to all of the council members, so you have a chance to review that yourselves and you see what kind of input's coming forward.
Councillor McRae?
Thank you, Mayor Linton. I'm pleased to hear what you're proposing, as I had planned to introduce a motion recommending that we defer this until February 2021 to allow time for councillors to review this, for a public consultation meeting, and then for councillors to have the opportunity to submit proposed red line amendments to the current draft. So what you're proposing, I like the idea. I think the key thing is that the public has an opportunity to share their opinion on this procedural document, since it is affecting how their elected representatives are supposed to be working. So just so I'm clear, what you're proposing is that council can provide red line comments November 6th, that the public has up until December 14th to submit their written recommendations, and also to identify that they're going to attend a delegation meetings on December 14th. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And the only additional piece of that is that the ad hoc committee would be made up of Councillor Dunsmore, Councillor McElwain, and myself.
And then when would council be expecting to have to decide on the bylaw? Would that be December 14th, or would we have another week to reflect on everything we've heard to then be able to come forward and have a good discussion?
The intent was for us to make a decision on December 14th. But council always has an opportunity to make modifications to that and to defer any kind of decision. But the intent was to have this done for this year. Councillor McRae?
Thank you, Mayor Linton. I prefer that we have the delegations come to council on the 14th, and if we could then have a final decision the following week, just to give us time to sort of reflect on everything we've heard, because this procedural document is a very important document and we need to get it right. I mean, what has been presented so far is excellent, but there needs to be some additions.
The challenge that we have is that we only have one council meeting in December. So if we did push it out, we'd be pushing it out into January, which is not, you know, we can still do it. We could push it out. We could present it in December and then bring it to the January council meeting. Any other comments from council? Councillor Foster?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I completely agree with my friend Councillor McRae. This is a very important document. We're going to be receiving a lot of information, presumably on the 14th. I wondered if it could come instead to, I'm not sure if there's one scheduled, but either first to committee of the whole and then to council, or as Councillor McRae has proposed, on December 14th and then to be voted on at the next meeting in January. I really do like Councillor McRae's comments and approach there. This is a very, very important document. We want to get it right and get it right the first time. So I support Councillor McRae's comments. I think it's very important to have that reflection time after we hear all the information.
Councillor Kidd?
Thank you, Mayor. I would agree with Councillor Foster's comments and support Councillor McRae's suggestions for meeting with the public. If the 14th is the date when the delegations and the information is due from the public, then I do think that there needs to be a waiting time to digest all that. And I think that's very reasonable.
Getting too tight, like it's too complicated.
Okay, so I think it's getting to, based on the conversation I'm hearing, it's a little too tight to try to do this in December. So what if we make the modifications that it comes in January, and then we present it maybe at the committee of the whole in January, and then bring it.
Or one council meeting in January.
What was that?
That's budget.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep it outside of budget. So our budget, we're going to have a lot of meetings. So we're trying to get this done before budget comes, because then we're going to be in budget mode and our staff don't have the time to do both these at the same time. So that's why we're trying to get it done by the new year, because in January we hit budget season. So the challenge that we're having, and why I'm speaking to the CEO and clerk, is we're trying to get this done. We want to make sure that we provide enough time for delegations to come in, but we can't have it push budget out, and we can't do both at the same time. So, I mean, I thought the process was okay. I thought that giving a number of the residents already have an awareness that this is going on, and I'm still feeling like a month for us to get it is okay. Can we just pause? I'm trying to figure this out on the fly, and let's take a 5-minute recess, because I want us to make sure that we do this right, but I don't want us to commit to something that staff can't do. So let's take a 5-minute recess. Come back at it at 2:40, and then we'll see if we can get a recommendation that kind of meets our timelines as far as staff goes, but also gives us enough time. Okay, it's hard to do this on the fly, try to make these changes. So give me 5 minutes here, and we'll try to pull out a recommendation.
comments will be received until November.
Okay, do we have everybody back again? Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure that we had this right. Wanted to put a recommendation together that works based on everybody's comments, but also recognizing the fact that we can't be doing this and budget at the same time. So we have to have this done in December 14th. So I have a recommendation around this, but here's the gist of it. So we post on CW Connect tomorrow that an opportunity for people to make comments to the existing procedural bylaw. And we post that tomorrow. We get it out on social media, inviting everybody to go to CW Connect to send in their comments. We leave that up until Monday, November the 9th, which is 2 full weeks for people to contact us. In addition to that, we want to make sure that we're getting all the councillors' feedback in on Monday, November 9th. So that gives us enough time for the ad hoc committee to then meet after we receive the comments back, so that we can take into consideration the comments that we heard from both councillors and members of the public. And then we still bring it to the December 14th council meeting and still allow delegations to come. So that provides an additional opportunity for people to come and delegate. The same people can delegate on December 14th and also submit their comments to us before November the 9th. So it gives lots of opportunity for citizens to have feedback, but also allows us to finish this in December so that we can start into our budget time in January and not have those overlap. It's already going to be a bit of a challenge for our staff to make sure that we're putting in enough Zoom meetings for this ad hoc committee to make sure that we have something for December the 14th, but I think this is doable and staff are okay with this. And I'm okay with this, and I'm hoping you guys are okay with this. So I want to read the recommendation and then get a mover and a seconder for that, and then final comments from councillors, and then see if we can put this one to bed. I have a recommendation that the Council of the Township of St. Wellington defer the consideration of a bylaw to govern the proceedings of council, and that council strike an ad hoc committee with councillors McElwain and Dunsmore and Mayor Linton to review the draft procedural bylaw, and that staff bring forward the committee's recommendation at the December 14th council meeting. Can I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Dunsmore. Any discussion from members of council about how that's worded? Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate what you're trying to accomplish there, Mayor, but nevertheless, I remain steadfast in my view that I want to hear from these delegations on the 14th. I'd like to see that the public has a chance to participate in the ad hoc committee. And at the end of the day, I think there needs to be a period of time between the 14th and our actual voting time. This is a very, very important matter. And I think they need to have that time delay. We'll have all information in by the 14th. I don't see why this is going to be a problem if we vote on it in January. First of all, the clerk's department is overseeing this rather than the budget is on the finance side. And secondly, it's such an important matter. I really would like to have that time for sober second thought once all information is in on the 14th of December. I'd also like to hear from Councillor McElwain, given that he made the motion, what his thoughts are on the matter. Yeah, those are my comments.
Councillor Van Lewis.
No, I think it's a good idea. Obviously, we've already had a good start at it. So, and then once the comments are taken in place by the ad hoc committee, we should be pretty far forward into the process already. So I think getting it done before the budget is a good idea. I'm curious to see the comments. Thanks.
Councillor McElwain.
I tend to agree with Councillor McRae and Councillor Foster, and I think some others as well, that there needs to be time between the delegations coming to council and the final decision making. I just don't think, I have faith that the ad hoc committee will can bring forward a recommendation by the 14th. But if we have 2 or 3 delegations with differing thoughts, I'm not sure that council is going to be able to make a final decision on the 14th. So as an alternative, what I had been anticipating was that the ad hoc committee would call a Zoom meeting for members of the public to provide their comments to the ad hoc committee, not the whole committee of the whole. That's like any other committee. I mean, you have to assume that the ad hoc committee will bring forward an honest report based upon the comments that come into us. And I don't see why the ad hoc committee couldn't have, a 2 or 3 hour Zoom meeting some afternoon between now and December 14th to collect those public comments if we need to get it through on the 14th. If we can wait until January, then do it to the whole committee of the whole. So those 2 alternatives are there as far as I'm concerned.
Councillor Kittrell? Councillor Kittrell? Councillor Kittrell, you're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I kind of missed most of Councillor McElwain's comments. I don't know, somehow the computer wasn't working. I have to agree with Councillor Foster and McElwain and McRae about the delay and having sober second thought. And part of it is that if we get, I would like to have all the information from the citizens and from all the other councillors, because it's part of the whole process to sort of see, and if reasons are given, change your mind. It's part of the whole process. And so to sort of just have it all on the 14th of December is too short a time. It's kind of pushing it. And so I agree with Councillor Foster that this is the legislative, the clerk that's doing this and not the finance committee. And so that's sort of a different department. And I think, I think I can juggle both and get both of information for both those decisions. And I think we just need to delay it.
I just want to make a couple comments. The first one is that even though it's a finance is the lead for budgets, it's up to the clerk and all their departments to do all the Zoom meetings and to get everything out there. So I think there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes in the clerk's area. And that's what they're letting me know, is that it's going to be hard to do both at the same time. And I appreciate that, because they're the ones that are on the hook to get all these meetings coordinated and going. The second point, we're not doing everything on December the 14th. We're opening this up as of tomorrow. So that we're only sitting at October here. That gives all of November and half of December for people to read the procedural bylaw and send in their comments. So this is not doing everything in one day. That day will be set aside for delegations, but people have a long time to send in comments about this procedural bylaw. So this is not, in my mind, this is not rushing at all. Councillor Dunsmore?
I'm, I would rather we have a procedural bylaw because we've been operating on an outdated procedural bylaw with people complaining everywhere. I want the public input. Kirk, I like your idea. Let's, the ad hoc committee host a Zoom meeting and take public input. Share that input. The other members of council, if they want to join in on that meeting, they can sit and observe. And let's gather the information, get it to council, and get this thing put to bed. If we need a special council meeting to deal with it, maybe that's what we have to do.
Councillor McRae?
Thank you, Mayor Linton. I appreciate staff's flexibility to look for a way to resolve this. My concerns remain that, first of all, I think to have delegations on the 14th and then for us to make a decision on the 14th is too quick. I still think we need time to reflect on this. I'm wondering, is it possible for us to have the delegations on November 23rd at that committee of the whole meeting, and then we have time to reflect and then make the decision on December 14th, which meets the idea to try and have something in place by December 14th. My other concern I have is, you mentioned posting as of tomorrow the existing procedural bylaw. Would you not want to post the existing plus the current proposed? Because I think people need to see what has changed in terms of the proposed, because it is an excellent document compared to what we currently have. So I think residents should see both.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to cut you off there. That's the point. It's the current draft procedural bylaw, not the
Okay.
old one that everybody knows doesn't work.
One of the things I was considering was to delay this final decision until February, knowing that January was going to be busy with all of the budget discussions, because I do appreciate staff's time. But I still think to try and have delegations and make a decision on the 14th just doesn't cut it for me, especially when I think about the animal control bylaw. We had public come in and to talk about it, and then they went away, we thought about it, and then we had a final decision.
Why don't we, well, obviously this recommendation isn't gonna fly then, so why don't we just do this and have it done in February after the budget? Because we're not gonna be able to do both at the same time. Staff have already told us there's limitations to that, so if we really want something that actually works, then we can't go ahead, even though staff have told us that they can't have all this done while they're doing budget. So why don't we push this out to February? There's no, we want to do it right and have the ad hoc committee meet, keep all the feedback coming in from the public and the councillors, but leave it for December and bring it to council in February. Anybody have a problem with just pushing it out a couple months? Councillor McRae?
So would we still have the delegations appear in the 14th and we'd have our final deliberation in February?
We could. The option is that we could defer the final decision to council till February and then work in behind the scenes to figure out a process to get there, which will include delegations, which will include public inputs, all the things that we've heard from members of council today. It's just really messy to try to do this all in a motion. If we can say that we want a new procedures bylaw that goes into effect by February, we can work our way backward, making sure that we have all those components that council has asked for. Is everybody okay with that? Otherwise, we'll be talking about this till this 6 o'clock tonight. Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Mayor. I think everything is good. But Councillor McRae raises an excellent question, which wasn't really directly answered. Have the delegations on the 14th of December and the vote on February at the February meeting. If that's the case, I think we're good to go. I think that meets everyone's needs and it addresses everyone's concerns. Is that what am I hearing this correctly? Delegations on the 14th of December, all the ad hoc committee things as discussed sound great so far. And then the only issue then is a time lag between hearing the delegations and the actual vote. If we do the vote in February, after hearing the delegations in December, then we're good to go. So am I hearing that correctly? If I am, I think we have a deal.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking here. The way I read the motion, all it said was that staff bring forward committee's recommendation in the December council meeting. All that we'd have to change is a friendly amendment to change that to bring forward committee's recommendations at the February council meeting. Everything else that we talked about will happen, but we're just making the resolution clear.
Right.
Councillor Kittrus?
Thank you, Mayor. I like that recommendation. But if I could make a friendly amendment to some of the process there, can the ad hoc committee and whatever they're collecting be circulated to all the councillors? So we're not just like, can all the other councillors' comments be circulated to us and the public's, because that's sort of part of the process for me.
Kind of the reason behind an ad hoc committee is that you have 3 councillors. We can't do more than 3 legally. We have to have 3 as the limit. Otherwise, you have a majority council. And the reason that you have an ad hoc committee is for that working group to go through that stuff. Otherwise, we just do committee of the whole. And then we're just back to where we started with this whole process. So no, we can't. If we have an ad hoc committee, they have to be given some leeway to work within their mandate and come back to council with all that information. You can't have it both ways. That's the way an ad hoc committee has to work. So can we do a friendly amendment to move this to February? Can I reread it and see if we can, if Councillor Dunsmore is still okay seconding it after the friendly amendment? And then we can take it from there. I think we all are working trying to go the same direction here. So I have a recommendation that the Council of the Township of Center Wellington defer the consideration of a bylaw to govern the proceedings of council, and that council strike an ad hoc committee with Councillors McElwain and Dunsmore and Mayor Linton to review the draft procedural bylaw, and that staff bring forward committee's recommendations at the February council meeting. Are you okay to second that, Councillor Dunsmore?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Okay, that's great. Okay, so the next is a consideration of reports, and we have a rezoning, and I know our clerk has to just pull people out of our waiting room for a second, so we'll just wait for a minute until she gives me the okay that everybody that should be in the meeting is in the meeting. Okay, the clerk has let me know that we're good. So we're dealing with a rezoning on Forfar Street in Fergus, and I'll turn it over to our senior planner, Mariana. Welcome, Mariana.
Thank you, Mayor Linton. Through you to members of council. The report before you is concerning the rezoning of the property at 166 Forfar Street East in the former town of Fergus. The property is 13.5 meters, 44 feet wide, and is located on the south side of Forfar Street East, just east of St. David Street North, in the middle of a block that's characterized by a stable, low-density residential neighborhood. The site's the subject of a rezoning request to change the zoning of the property from the current C3 neighborhood commercial zoning to R1C, which is residential low-density zoning. The owner has applied for the rezoning in order to facilitate plans to demolish the existing building, which currently supports a convenience store at street level with the residential unit above, and is in very poor condition despite repeated renovation attempts. It has operated in this capacity for several decades as a convenience store with a residential unit. And the current C3 zoning reflects the historic use on the property, which was brought forward from the former Town of Fergus zoning bylaw rather than a planned commercial area. The owner would like to construct a new residential dwelling with an accessory apartment in place of the existing building as a result of the significant decline in the viability of the commercial use or the convenience store operation due to a steady increase in other nearby retail commercial uses in recent years. A public meeting was held on July 29th, 2020 to receive input. No oral or written submissions were received by the public at that meeting or subsequently. The county and the school board have provided letters with no objections to the application. At the public meeting, some concern was expressed over the loss of the neighborhood commercial use. The owner has provided some additional information in response to some of these concerns through a letter that's attached to the staff report, which hopefully you've all received. It is staff's opinion that the residential use is considered appropriate on this property, and the loss of the owner operated convenience store would have minimal impact on meeting the retail needs or employment opportunities in the community, given numerous other existing commercial retail uses nearby within walking distance. In addition, no submissions or comments were received from any of the neighbors expressing concern over the loss of this commercial use. However, staff do recognize that the ancillary neighborhood commercial uses are encouraged where compatibility is achieved, and also given the historic use of this property as a convenience store, what staff is proposing is a site-specific amendment that would actually expand the size and range of home occupation uses that would be permitted in a regular residential zone in order to allow the convenience store use or something similar to continue on the ground level. And that's should that market conditions change and the owner be interested in operating such a use into the future. So planning staff's detailed analysis of the applicable provincial, county, and township policies is provided in the staff report. And in summary, it's staff's opinion that the rezoning meets the applicable policies as the residential use is the anticipated use in a residential zone and in a residential designation, within the stable residential neighborhood. And it's considered compatible with the surrounding residential uses. And the zoning would allow the owner greater flexibility in the long run to operate a live-work operation similar to what currently exists, but also in the short term, the redevelopment would add to the rental housing stock in the township. So as such, approval of the rezoning application is recommended by staff. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
I also know that there's a delegation. Jeff Boozman from Van Harten is here. If there's any questions that he would like to answer as well, he can feel free to chime in as well. So any questions from council? Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me? Okay? Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I have a question for Mariana. Mariana, you mentioned additional accessory uses or home occupation type uses. Can you just expand on that a little bit for us? In particular, what kinds of stores might be allowed to be used in that area? Is it just a convenience store? What other businesses would be permissible on this site-specific location? Any general comments, Mariana, and just expand on that if you could?
Sure, thank you. Through you, Mayor Linton, thanks for the question, Councillor Foster. So on a residential property, typically home occupation is permitted. It's permitted to occupy 30% of the total floor area of the dwelling. And there's a range of uses that would be permitted there. Typically would be something like personal service. Retail is limited to only 25% of a typical home occupation. So again, within that total 30%, only a quarter of that could be retail space. So what we're proposing on this zoning amendment and a site-specific basis is that for this property alone, that 30% home occupation would be permitted to be 50%. So it could be the entire ground floor of the dwelling. And then what we're also suggesting is that rather than limit retail sales to 25% of that space, it could be up to 100%. So what that would do is allow the entire main floor to be retail sales, which is not typically permitted anywhere else. It's limited to a quarter of the home occupation. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. Following, Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Mariana, thank you for that answer. So do you know, and I realize site plan approval hasn't happened yet, but what might the size of the main floor be? To the best of your, I realize you may be guessing a bit, but would it be 1,000 square feet on the main floor or something like that? What ballpark are we talking? I'm really asking what kind, I'm trying to envision the viability of a future store there and hoping that it is viable.
Sure. Thank you. Through you, Mayor Linton. So what we've done is taken what the coverage restriction or coverage allowance would be in terms of maximum for the footprint of the building and used that as a guideline for the main to allow the commercial use. So the ground floor would be looking at 218 square meters. So we're looking at about 2,000 square feet, just over.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mariana.
2,350 square feet would be the footprint of the main floor.
But to be clear, Mariana, that could mean in future that we could see a 2,300 or thereabouts square foot retail space available on the main floor only.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councillor McElwain.
No, I have no questions on this. It looks straightforward. It allows the opportunity to go back to commercial if you need it, and I can understand their desire to renovate and get the residential portion. So it does make sense. Thanks.
Councillor McElwain.
Takes a long time to say no, but I have nothing. Thank you.
Councillor Kitchers.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Mariana. I was wondering, I understand the flexibility that you're trying to work into here for future possibilities of commercial. I was wondering about is this a single residential above or is it multi-unit? That's my first question. And I'm wondering about the parking provisions, whether there'd be restrictions on how it's located on the property. Can you answer that?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Linton. Yes, so it is one residential unit right now that's proposed on the main floor and above. If needed, they could convert, as I said, the main floor space to commercial, have the residential unit above. And there would be an accessory unit proposed in the basement of the dwelling. So that would be their additional dwelling unit or second unit. And in terms of parking, so the main dwelling would have to have parking, and that's proposed in a garage right now. So again, that garage would be providing that required space. And then the recent amendments that have come from the province require us to allow tandem parking for any second unit or additional unit. So that would be permitted to be on the driveway.
Councillor Dunsmore?
Yeah, I have no problems letting them do whatever they want with this property. The letter that the family submitted, you know, after the complaints from everybody else is heartbreaking. They put their life savings into this. They've tried to create a business and it hasn't got the support of the locals. And when they take it down, people start at them that, you know, we're going to lose this, we're going to lose this. And I mean, you can tell that they're struggling, and I don't think we should be standing in their way to stop them from doing what they need to do to get their money back out of that building.
Councillor McRae?
Mariana's responses to Councillors Foster and McElwain or Kittredge answered my questions. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. So I'm going to read the recommendation that the Council of the Township of Wellington approve application RZ01/20 and that the necessary zoning bylaw be given 3 readings. Mover for that recommendation, Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Dunsmore. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much, Mariana, and thank you very much to the owner and for Jeff Boozman for being on the phone with us today. Moving on to 11.2, community impact grants, the report that we see every year, and I will turn it over.
Excuse me, Kelly, sorry, sorry to interrupt you, but because I have to get out of here and because it's a Zoom meeting, how do I get back in and how do I know to get back in? Because I assume I have to close the call while you're having this topic.
Yeah, good comment. Sorry about that, Councillor McElwain. I forgot about your conflict there. Can he use the same number to get back in?
No, I'll put him in the waiting room, wait down, I'll bring him back.
Okay, so just wait in the waiting room. Carrie will escort you there right now, and then she'll bring you back in when this item is finished. Okay. Okay, I forgot about that. Community impact grants. I'll turn it over to Dorothy Smith, our manager of community development, festivals, culture, and tourism. Welcome, Dorothy.
Helps if I unmute. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to provide council with an update on our 2020 community impact grants this year. As you know, it's been quite a bizarre year and most of our cultural events have all been canceled. So I wanted to reach out to our recipients of the grants to find out where they were with regards to their funding, if they were able to use it or if they were not able to use it. Fortunately, most of them were able to use the funding, but several were not. So the question we asked them is, if you were not able to use the funding this year, can you roll it, if you had the ability to roll it over next year for the same programming, would that work for you? And of course, they all agreed that it would. So much conversation with the Community Services Advisory Committee at their recent meeting in October. We had the discussion about presenting a motion to council in regards to the rollover of any unused funding for these groups. With the one stipulation that if we are to roll over the funding for 2021, those groups that apply next year can only apply for the difference of the rollover and the maximum $5,000 allowance. There's a lot of interest in the grants right now. I'm getting people coming out of the woods asking about funding for next year. So it's going to be a rather interesting request for next year, I believe. But the gist of it is through the advisory board, the recommendation to roll over for next year is the ask to council right at the moment. Are there any questions?
Yeah, thanks very much, Dorothy, and thanks to all the members of that committee for helping us in the past a lot on some of these decisions that we have to make. And this is another one where they spend their volunteer times going through this and providing recommendation to council. So if you can extend our thanks to these volunteer members, that would be great. Councillor Dunsmore, do you have anything to add to this?
Oh, I thought it was a good plan, and the staff and the ad hoc committee came, or the CSAC committee came up with it. And I think it's a good plan to help people that were stymied because they got the money this year, they got started, and then COVID shut them down like it shut everybody else down. And so now it's an opportunity to move forward and not lose that money and maybe add to it with a little bit. If they use, say, 1,500 to 5,000, then they can top it up and get their program further down. So I think it was a good compromise. I thought it was a great plan.
Thanks, Councillor Dunsmore. Councillor McRae, any comments, questions?
I think it's a great progressive approach. So I'm in favor.
Thanks very much. Councillor Kittredge?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is great that we can get an update like this, Dorothy. I appreciate that, and I think the plan sounds very good.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Leeuwen?
Yeah, it's a good plan. It's put together with thought as well towards the extra funding. So I think it's a great idea and allows them to push their funding back into next year as well. So it's good. Thanks.
Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm generally in favor. Just a quick question for Dan. If I'm understanding correctly, Dan, the funds were allocated this budget year. If any funding lapses into next year, can you just talk me through how that would work as far as unspent funds in the current year being spent next year? Any accounting implications there, Dan?
Yes, through Mayor Linton, I believe the plan is for each applicant to retain the funds that they were given in 2020 and use that towards 2021. And then we will account for, as Dorothy mentioned, the difference between $5,000 and the amount they are carrying forward will be a decision in the 2021 application.
Thanks, Dan. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of the Township of Center Wellington approve rolling over the unused 2020 funding allocated to community impact grant recipients to be used in 2021, and that the 2020 funding be used for the same project as approved in 2020, and that should the same applicant wish to apply for the additional funding, only the difference between the amount rolled over to 2021 and a maximum allowance of $5,000 be granted. Mover for that recommendation, Councillor Dunsmore, seconded by Councillor Foster. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Dorothy.
Thanks,
Information
everyone.
items. So I think we'll ask Councillor McElwain to come back in, and when I see him, we'll go on. Okay. So I see Councillor McElwain's back on. So no information items. We have several bylaws there. And I have a recommendation that the bylaws 2020-46 through 2020-50 be read a first, second, and third time and passed and signed by the mayor and clerk and the corporate seal affixed. Mover for that, Councillor Dunsmore, seconded by Councillor McRae. All in favor? And that is carried. Confirmatory bylaws, recommendation of bylaw 2020-52 to confirm the proceedings of council as meeting held October 26, 2020 be introduced a first, second, and third time and passed in open council. Mover for that recommendation. Councillor Kittredge, seconded by Councillor McRae. All in favor? And that's carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Kittredge, seconded by Councillor Foster. All in favor? And we are adjourned. Have a good rest of the afternoon and a nice evening tonight. Thanks, everyone.